silent mode or turned off. Photography during the session is strictly limited to authorized personnel only. Thank you. The Honorable Said Yüce, as Executive President of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, Turkey. The Honorable Tuğba Türkoğlu, as Head of English Department of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, Turkey. The Honorable, the President of University of Darussalam Gontor, Professor Dr. Amal Fatullah Zarkashi. The Honorable Rector of University of Darussalam Gontor, Professor Dr. Hamid Fahmi Zarkashi, and all his vices. The Honorable, all of the speaker, Professor Dr. Alparslan Acıkgenç from Üsküdar University, Turkey. Professor Dr. Necati Aydin from Al Faisal University, Saudi Arabia. Dr. Ahmed Subashe from Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, Turkey. Associate Professor Dr. Adi Setia, MD Dom from International Islamic University of Malaysia. Turhan Yolcu from University of Melbourne, Australia. Uzma Ahmed from Institute of Integrated Knowledge, Hartford City, USA. And respectable to all of audiences, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the International Workshop on Science and Religion, the Harfi and Ismi perspectives in philosophy of science and education at University of Darussalam Gontor, Indonesia. The event is scheduled to take place on Thursday and Friday, the 21st and 22nd of Safar, 1445, corresponding to the same frame as September 7th and 8th, 2023. In our earnest pursuit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and blessing, let us now devote ourselves to the recitation of the Holy Quran, which will be graciously performed by esteemed brother Muhammad Reza Auliaul Haq. He will be reciting from chapter Al-Fat, verse 1 to 5. The time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما. وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ويكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وكان ذلك عند الله فوزا عظيما صدق الله العظيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us commence today's agenda by reciting Al-Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our next agenda is the rendition of the national anthem Indonesia Raya, followed by Istiqlal Marsi and Hymn of Pondokku. We kindly request all the audience to rise. all audiences, you are welcome to be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, our upcoming agenda item involves the presentation of welcoming remarks by following distinguished individual. For the first presentation of welcoming remarks, please welcome Rector of University of Darussalam Gontor, Professor Dr. Hamid Fahmi Zarkashi. The time is your honorable.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respectable President of University of Darussalam Gontor, Professor Dr. Amal Fatullah Zarkashi. Respectable guests, Dr. Said Yuce, Executive President of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. Respectable Professor Dr. Arpasalan Achigens, Üsküdar University, Turkey. Respectable Professor Nechati Aydin, Al-Faisal University, Saudi Arabia. Respectable Professor Dr. Ahmad Subesi, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Respectable Associate Professor Dr. Adistia Muhammad Dom, International Islamic University of Malaysia. Respectable Dr. Turhan Yulchu, University of Melbourne. Respectable Dr. Usma Ahmad, Team of 5D Thinking Training, USA. Respectable Professor Dr. Ugi Suharto, International Islamic University of Indonesia. Respectable Professor Dr. Bitani Kartika Mufli, International Islamic University of Malaysia. Respectable Dr. Muhammad Zaid Ismail from IKIM, Malaysia. Brother Hasbi Sen, Nur Semesta from Jakarta. All respectable Vice Rector, Dean of Faculties, Head of Department, all lecturer and all students. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min syururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillah fala mudhillalah wa man yudlilhu fala hadiyalah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, amma ba'du. Today we have very important program, and I think this is the first time we have in University of Darussalam, not really seminar, but it is called International Workshop on Science and Religion, and followed only by limited person. This is only this time we only have the opening ceremony, and then after that the student cannot follow this program. So it is very special and it is very exclusive. We invited the speaker and discussion that will be involved in this workshop, and hopefully it will be very fruitful for the future studies on Islamic science. Therefore, I would like to introduce, I have mentioned those participants of this important workshop. Number one, Dr. Said Yuce. This is the Executive Director, Executive President of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. This is number two from the left. And then Professor Dr. Arpasalan Achigens is lecturer at Üsküdar University. He was our lecturer also at ISTEC that time, and also expert on Said Nursi studies. Professor Nechati Aydin from Al-Faisal University is in the right side. And then Dr. Ahmad Subesi from Dubai is in left. And then Professor Dr. Adi Setia. Adi, please, you are not visible from that time. Yeah, he's from Malaysia. He's my class fellow in ISTEC. And also Dr. Turhan Yulchu from Melbourne. Yeah, very young, still very young. He is born in Melbourne. He's really Australian. Yeah. Dr. Usma Ahmed. Yeah. No problem. Dr. Ugi Suharto, he is here. He is the graduate of ISTEC, but now is teaching at International Islamic University in Jakarta. Professor Dr. Bitania Kartika, she is Indonesian, from Java. Yeah. Dr. Muhammad Zaidi Ismail is here. He is our class fellow in ISTEC also. He is from IKIM. And Brother Hasbi Sen, representative of Nursi in Jakarta. Yeah, he speaks Bahasa Indonesia very well. At this occasion, I would like to show you all, and especially to Professor Arpasalan and Dr. Said Yuce, that we have very close collaboration with Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture from time to time. In 2013, our lecturer, Associate Professor Sujiat Zubaidi, was a speaker at International Grand Conference on Nursi Studies in Istanbul. In 2014, the first University of Darussalam delegation for international short course in Badi'uz Zaman Nursi at the center of foundation. 2015, we have the second delegation of Universitas Gontor International Short Course on Badi'uz Zaman Nursi at the same place. 2018, their Universitas General Lecture presented their works on NIN International Grand Opening on Nursi Studies in Istanbul. And 2019, Universitas Gontor delegation presented their workshop at 10 International Conference on Nursi Studies in Istanbul. In 2021, me, myself, as director of University of Darussalam Gontor, visited Istanbul Foundation and get together with our graduate of Gontor there for a number of the students who came from different cities. And also the first Majlis Nur was held at University of Darussalam and now become monthly program at Nursi Corner, University of Darussalam Gontor. Then we have first conference on Risail Nur and Modern Science at University of Darussalam Gontor. 2022 international webinar on Badi'uz Zaman Nursi studies on the theme of Kalimat Al-Kalimat at multidisciplinary perspective. University of Darussalam Gontor also sent delegation for international education program Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. Also at the same year, lecture of University of Darussalam Gontor presented the work in 12th International Badi'uz Zaman Nursi Symposium at Istanbul. In 2023, Hamidiyah Foundation visiting Nursi Corner at University of Darussalam Gontor and joining Daqaiqun Nur reading Risalatus Shabab. The first Dirsani reading Al-Kalimat was held by Nursi Corner at University of Darussalam Gontor. There are a number of our students who were interested to study Nursi. We have recorded here, there have been, and still going on, 6 PhD dissertations on Nursi, 10 master thesis studying on Nursi with different topic, 15 undergraduate thesis also writing on Nursi, and we have 21 publication in international journal, and also presented 48 international paper in international conference, and we also published 5 book of reference on Nursi. The program organized by University of Darussalam at Nursi Corner, we have Nursi Corner already, and we have shown to the delegation today. On the daily program, we have Daqaiqun Nur, 10-minute reading Risail Nur after Maghrib prayer. Weekly Dirsani, we study Kitabul Kalimat at Sunday, Kitabul Masnawi at Thursday morning, study on Risail Nur in female campus. Monthly program, Majlis Nur, the thematic study review of academic paper. And annually, we have international conference on Risail Nur and modern science, appointing participant for Nadwa Al-Alamiyah Al-Bahisin Lishabab, appointing a participant for international symposium on Said Nursi, and international short course on at Istanbul Foundation for Culture and Science. Fortunately, one of our PhD dissertation that graduated last year will be published at Darussalam publisher at Egypt. Please give applause. Yeah. This is not such easy to give the manuscript to the publisher in Egypt unless that one will very qualified. So the first publication was the work of Professor Amal Fatullah Zarkashi on Ilmu Kalam, Ittijahus Salafi, in Indonesia. And this is the second work written by our lecturer studying about the Nursi on eco-theology. And very interested, and he's got the excellent remark on the examination. Thank you very much for Dr. Isamuddin, who wrote in Arabic. Yeah. And the next dissertation that will be examined after some time, the title is Science Viewed from Islamic Worldview of the Physiological Model Theory Found in Badi'u Zaman Nursi Risale Nur. The second candidate of PhD, entitled Said Nursi on Humanity, Antithesis Theory of Class of Civilization. And this is all what I can say about our close relation with Istanbul Foundation for Culture and Science. Hopefully in the future we will have more other program either here in University of Darussalam or at Istanbul. For the students who are interested to study Nursi, you can go to Istanbul and buy your own ticket. But you will be accommodated freely over there for 1 week, inshallah. Yeah, we have done this, and we have 3 delegations already. We sent in 3 years, and I think you can enjoy Istanbul very well, only buying one return ticket. This is good news for you, and hopefully today we have also this workshop in 2 days, and after 2 days there are another workshop about 5 dimensions of thinking, and they will be followed by our lecturer in our university here, and it will be very interesting. I think this is also new program offered by the foundation, and I'm sure that it will be very useful for our lecturer in teaching science and another studies. Thank you very much for the coming, all the delegation. Hopefully you will enjoy the food, enjoy the hotel, and inshallah we will show tonight, after tonight, next night, the cultural show by the student when we have the gala dinner tomorrow, inshallah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Remarks. The next presentation of welcoming remarks from Executive President of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, Professor Said Yushe. The time is your honorable.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. As-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulina Muhammed wa ala alihi ve sahbihi ecmain. Tercüme edecek Ahmet kardeş. İstanbul'dan, Türkiye'den binler selam getirdik. Kendimizi evimizde hissediyoruz burada. Sizi de İstanbul'a, Türkiye'ye geldiğinizde evinizde hissetmenizi istiyoruz.
Thousands of greetings from Istanbul, and we want to say we feel at home here, and inshallah when you come to Istanbul, we want to make sure that you will feel at home.
Gontor Darussalam Üniversitesi ile uzun yıllara dayanan bir işbirliğimiz var. Kurucularından Profesör Amal Fethullah Zarkaji ve Hamit Zarkaji hocalarımıza özel teşekkür ederek konuşmama başlamak istiyorum.
We have a long-lasting relationship with University of Darussalam, and I want to start by thanking Professor Amal Fethullah and Professor Hamid Sarkashi for their long-lasting relationship and support for making this happen.
12 saat uçuşla Jakarta'ya, sonra 1,5 saat uçuşla neresiydi? Surabaya'ya ve Gontor'a geldik. Uzun bir yolculuktan sonra, binlerce kilometre öteden, ama sizleri burada görmüş olmakla sanki kardeşlerimizi, ailemizi görmüşüz gibi sevindik.
12 hours of flight from Istanbul to Jakarta, another 1 hour of flight to here. It was a tiring trip, but when we saw you, our brothers and sisters here, we forget all these tiredness and we feel refreshed and happy.
Aslında sizleri görmüş olmak hem ümitlerimizi yeşertti, tazeledi. Hakikaten biz dünyanın bir ucundayız, sizler bir ucunda. Ama aynı Allah'a, aynı peygambere, aynı kıbleye dönen insanlar, aynı Allah'a inanan insanlar ve insanlığın barışı, ebedi saadetini kazanması için gayret eden çok kıymetli bir toplulukla bir aradayız şu anda.
When we have seen the environment here, it flourished our hopes for the future and now. We live in different corners of the world, but we believe in the same Allah, we turn to the same Qibla, and inshallah out of this will come out a lot of hope out of this.
Biraz önce rektör hocamızın konuşmasında zikrettiği, sizlerin de Bediüzzaman Said Nursi Hazretleri ve onun eserleri, Kur'an tefsirleri olan Risale-i Nur hakkında, Risale-i Nurlar hakkında yapmış olduğunuz doktora, master tezleri, çok sayıda makaleler ve uluslararası toplantılara yaptığınız iştiraklerle, o değerli fikirlerinizden dolayı, yapılan bütün çalışmalardan dolayı ve burada açılan Nursi Corner'dan dolayı ve yeni şimdi ziyaret ettiğimiz medreseden dolayı tekrar üniversite yönetimine ve sizlere, hepinize çok teşekkür ediyorum.
We want to thank several times to the university management and you dear students for all the PhD studies, all the articles, and the Bediüzzaman Said Nursi Corner here in the university. We cannot appreciate it more.
Aslında 2 hafta önce İstanbul'da çok güzel bir toplantı yaptık. Çok kısaca ondan bahsedeyim. Bazı hocalarımız, Profesör Necati Aydın hocam, Alparslan hocam, Ahmet kardeşimiz iştirak ettiler. 5D Thinking diye. Aslında Kur'an tefsiri olan Risale-i Nurlar'da geçen Manay Harfi isimli bir kavramın açılımıyla ilgili 6 gün süren çok kıymetli bir toplantıydı.
We want to mention a program which was held recently in Istanbul based on the concept of Harfi perspective. And Harfi perspective is the perspective which is explained in Risale-i Nur, which is an exegesis of Quran, and he wants to tell you more about that program, 5D Thinking program.
Yaklaşık 200 yıldır dünyada tesiri görülen ve hakimiyet kurmuş olan bir eğitim modeli var. Maalesef kainattan sahibi, yaratıcısıyla varlıkların arasındaki irtibatı koparan, sanki mikro alemden makro aleme kadar her şeyin, bütün varlıkların kendi kendine ya da tabiat vasıtasıyla, sebepler vasıtasıyla ya da tesadüfen meydana geldiğini, var olduğunu anlatan çok sakat ve yanlış bir sistemi sadece Batı değil, maalesef bütün İslam dünyasının çoğunda da bu eğitim sistemi uygulanıyor.
There is an educational system which held sway for the last 200 years. And the problem with that educational system is it severes the connection between the creator and the creation, Allah and his servants. And it's creating a lot of problems for the Ummah and the rest of the humanity. It claims as if everything is popped up into existence out of randomness, out of pure chance. And this is a big problem that poses us.
Şu masanın üzerinde görülen meyvelerin, çok lezzetli ve güzel meyvelerin veya dünyadaki bütün yaratılmış olan canlı cansız her şeyin tesadüfen kendinden olduğunu, güneş, toprak, hava, suyun birleşmesiyle meydana geldiğini anlatan bu yanlış sisteme karşı aslında manay harfi dediğimiz şey, bizim öyle bir bakışla kainata bakacağız ki aslında yaygın olan sistemde ülfet ve gaflet perdesi dediğimiz bir perdeyle bakıyoruz. Bunun topraktan geldiğini, işte güneşin, suyun bir araya gelmesiyle, elementlerin bir araya gelmesiyle kendi kendine olduğunu veya tesadüfen olduğunu anlatan bir sistem bu maalesef.
Let's look at these beautiful fruits. The perspective which holds sway claims that it's a random combination of different elements that popped up into existence. On the other hand, we have the Harfi perspective, which connects this truth to the Creator in a way that makes sense of all these beauty and delicious and thankful reality in front of us.
2 hafta önce İstanbul'da yaptığımız, şimdi de birkaç gün süreyle Darussalam Gontor Üniversitesi'ne devam edecek olan bu programda aslında esma tecellileri diye ifade edebileceğimiz Cenab-ı Hakk'ın o güzel isimlerinin, yani Rahman ismi, Rahim ismi, Rezzak ismi, Kadir ismi, Kerim, Mülevvin gibi çok güzel isimlerinin tecellilerinin olduğunu burada hep beraber dinleyeceğiz. Yani mesela bir koyunun yavrusu kuzuyu emzirmesi ya da bütün annelerin yavrularını şefkatle beslemesi sadece bugünkü bilimde onun gıdalanması olarak anlatılıyor. Ama burada Rahim isminin bir tecellisi var. Yani Cenab-ı Hakk'ın rahmetinin ve rahimiyetinin o şefkatin timsali o anneye verilmiş. Veya bu rızıkların üzerinde bunu veren Rezzak'ı gösteren, Kerim'i gösteren, o güzel renkleri veren Mülevvin isminin tecellisi olduğunu anlatan bir program olacak inşallah.
In the coming 2 days during the program, when we look at these beautiful fruits, we will see manifestations of the holy attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, when we look at this beauty, we will see the manifestation of the Ism Razzaq, Rahim, Mulawwan, because there are so many beautiful things around, right? So, and the smells and everything, Razzaq and Shukur, and all these aspects will be discussed during these 2 days. One more thing,
Yes.
and when we look at the way lamb sucks milk from the sheep, so we can describe this situation as a simple feeding of one animal by another animal, but actually this is a moment where the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rahman and Rahim, manifests in that relationship.
Aslında okullarda okutulan fen bilimleri kitaplarında anlatılan biyoloji, fizik, kimya kitaplarında her şey doğru, yanlış bir şey yok. Oradaki bilimler, anlatılan formüller doğru ama çok büyük bir eksik var o kitaplarda. Bunu kimin yaptığı, kimin idare ettiği anlatılmıyor. Bunun kendi kendine olduğu anlatılıyor.
When we look at books of biology, there are a lot of useful and correct information over there. We are not against that information at all. So that's important to have these information. But there is a big gap over there. It does not connect us with the creator of that reality.
İnşallah bunun çok güzel ayrıntılarını değerli hocalarımızın konuşmalarında, sunumlarında, önümüzdeki günler devam edecek müzakerelerde çok yakinen takip etme, öğrenme fırsatımız olacak.
So in the coming days, we will have the opportunity to understand these nuances and important facts as part of the discussions and deliberations with our esteemed professors here.
Ben konuşmamın son bölümünde bir şeyi yine hatırlatmak istiyorum. O da şu, aslında Cenab-ı Hak insanı kendisine çok önemli bir muhatap olarak yaratmış ve şöyle bir hakikat de var. Kainata sığamadım, müminin kalbine sığdım diye. Bu nidaya, bu Cenab-ı Hakk'ın bu şekildeki bir tecellisine karşı bizim insan olarak çok büyük bir vazifemiz var. O büyük vazife, yani mesleğimiz, branşımız ne olursa olsun hayata gelmekteki, yaşamaktaki bir numaralı işimiz imanımızı kurtarmak, imanla kabre girmek ve yani ebedi saadeti kazanmak davası. İnşallah sizler, hem hanımlar, kızlarımız hem erkeklerimiz, gelecekteki en önemli işimizin önce kendi imanımızın kurtulmasına çalışmak, sonra başkalarının imanlarının kurtulmasına çalışmak olmalı. Bu önemli hakikat hepimiz için önemli bir rehber olmalı diye düşünüyorum ve böyle bir üniversitede, böyle bir eğitim kurumunda alacağımız bu formasyonla, bu yeterlilikle aslında bir başka insanlara, bugün dünyanın her tarafındaki insanlara bu hakikatleri, yani bu iman hakikatini ulaştırmak gibi önemli bir sorumluluk omuzlarımızda. İnşallah hep beraber buna gayret edeceğiz. Ben bu düşüncelerle tekrar hepinize teşekkür ediyorum. Çok değerli üniversite yöneticilerine ve burada katılan bütün hocalarımıza ve öğrencilerimize tekrar teşekkür ediyorum.
We as human beings have been honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He spoke with us. He gave us this amana and He entrusted this kainat, this existence to us. This gives us a big responsibility. Thus, the first duty of us as human beings must be saving our iman and sharing that truth with the rest of humanity and going to the depth of that iman. And these institutions and the fact that we came together even increases that responsibility. The fact that we are blessed by Allah by being here, having this great opportunity to be with all these esteemed professors and in this blessed institution gives us a great responsibility, and this should be our first duty in life and the focus of all our vision and expectation from this life. And we want to finalize our words with these statements, and we thank you all for being here and participating in this great gatherings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now moving to the next agenda, the signing of Memorandum of Understanding between University of Darussalam Gontor and Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. Gentlemen, our upcoming agenda includes a public lecture that will be delivered by our keynote speaker, Professor Alparslan Acigens from Üsküdar University, Turkey. For Professor Alparslan Acigens, the time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillah Rabbil alemin. Vessalatu vesselamu ala Resulina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve ashabi ecmain. Esselamu aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuhu. This one. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Universitas Gontor and the president, Professor Amel Fethullah, and the rector Hamid Zarkeshi for giving me the opportunity to address you here today, and also having a workshop which we think that it is extremely significant because it is paying attention to an issue that concerns Muslims today. So what I did, I decided to talk about something general today. Like probably it will be an introduction for that workshop also. Knowledge tradition in Islamic civilization. What I myself understand, and I would like to share that with you today, inshallah. Okay. Oh, this is forward, or this is forward? Oh, okay. So, the issues involved in an outline that what I would be trying to discuss with you this morning. First of all, the concept of knowledge itself from a different perspective, from the perspective of scientific process, which I try to develop for the past 20 years or so, after examining the history of science in Islamic civilization especially. One thing that concerns, of course, us is what do we understand from knowledge itself. As you know, in the history of philosophy, there are so many different definitions offered. In fact, you probably heard there is an Orientalist called Franz Rosenthal who wrote a specific book on this only concerning Islamic civilization, the concept of knowledge or ilm in Islamic civilization. And he collected all those definitions, understandings, descriptions of knowledge. One day I said, let me see how many he collected. I started counting. I was able to count something around 380 definitions and descriptions of ilm or knowledge in Islamic civilization only. And can you imagine other civilizations also? So that means it has become a significant issue for the whole humanity, not only Islamic civilization, but all. So that is why I was concerned with this quite a lot. So I thought maybe I can try to offer my own understanding also. And then it's very brief, not in detailed, history in Islamic civilization also. So knowledge tradition itself also, how should we perceive it, and how it was perceived in Islamic civilization. And then ending finally with only one class of knowledge which is very important in our time, that is science, or if you like you can even say scientific knowledge, especially in Islamic civilization itself. So why am I so much concerned with knowledge? What is its significance? I would like to say a few things about this. Whatever you do in real life itself, obviously you will do it with some kind of a knowledge. And you cannot achieve it without having knowledge. But every time we attempt to do something and we try to offer an understanding for it, we express it in certain concepts. And those concepts, when they are gathered together, actually that is what we understand. We say it is the knowledge of that specific thing. But you see, through such accumulations, we begin to see that every knowledge is not the same. So how can we perceive different kinds of knowledge? Through a classification. We start classifying, this kind of knowledge, that kind of knowledge. As a result, we reach, different understandings. Among these, we are concerned with one specific knowledge. Again, that is science or scientific knowledge, which becomes an integral part of Islamic understanding of existence and reality, okay? And also this understanding of existence and reality, which is applied in different areas. That means then we arrive at different branches of sciences also. But you see, all of these things, the significance of Islamic civilization is that we have been able to achieve, probably through the idea of Tawheed, the unity of knowledge. And this unity gives us a doctrinal understanding of the concept itself. So whenever we say ilm or knowledge, therefore we understand a doctrine, a very comprehensive idea. And that is why this Orientalist, which I mentioned, through his studies of so many different books and from different backgrounds, if you are able to acquire that book, you can see that he starts with the Quran, Quran's understanding of knowledge itself, and then its extension into the hadith literature, in other words. And then from that, when it is reflected on the society, again, it is studied from different perspectives, from the perspective of fiqh, for example, and then kalam, tafsir, and so on, and then different approaches, also philosophy, the Mashai approach. So all of these things are divided according to their perspective, whatever they understand. So that is why, it becomes a doctrinal understanding and very important. The interesting thing is that, he reaches a conclusion in this, that the term ilm from Arabic cannot be simply translated as knowledge into English. Of course, if you pay attention concerning the literal understanding, that is the only way we can translate it. But when you look into the doctrinal understanding of knowledge itself in Islamic civilization, the term knowledge in English does not express the whole thing. In fact, he says, I will change his saying a little bit to understand, what we mean. If you ask an expert that what is the most significant concept in Islam, probably most of us will say Tawheed, because obviously everything is based on Tawheed. But now we think that actually there is another concept that precedes Tawheed, and that is ilm. Because Tawheed without knowledge doesn't mean anything. So as a result, it becomes more comprehensive. When I continue, I will try to explain this a little bit further, because when this understanding was introduced in the Quran in the 1st century, right at the beginning, it encouraged Muslims to run after knowledge. So it became one of the most significant efforts, activities of Muslim life, okay? In fact, some of the ahadith in which probably the term ilm is not mentioned, but actually it means ilm. For instance, when you consider the hadith that says a person whose 2 days are the same is at loss. What does that mean? That means you have not increased yourself in knowledge. So every day a little bit more. Of course, this knowledge, as you know, is based also on action, because ilm and amal as we express all the time, they go together. And many of our scholars, of course, based on our understanding of the Quran and the Hadith and its teaching, that ilm without amal has no value at all. So therefore, increase means in knowledge, but at the same time, what that knowledge requires you to do. Okay, and as a result, it becomes extremely important. But you see, all of these activities, both in knowledge and in action, gradually lead to the disciplinary classification of knowledge itself. And this happened quite fast in Islamic civilization. It led to the emergence of sciences. As you know, at the beginning, there were no science in Islamic history. In the I would say probably the first century, sciences began to emerge. And this you don't see in any other civilizations. You know, what I notice whenever I study history of science is that we Muslims, when we study the early history of Islam, we study it always, it's a habit, a history of religion. But you see, when we go into the study of history of science, what we do, we say, let me see, when there is science, in the 3rd century, Muslims developed algebra, optics, physics, chemistry, and so on. Even a little bit earlier, of course, some of these sciences emerged, and then we begin the history from that time. This is definitely wrong, because all of these things, they have a background, they have a foundation, and that foundation is based on this doctrinal understanding of knowledge itself. So as a result, history of Islam is not only, it doesn't only mean history of religion. For us, it also means history of science, history of technology, you know, history of law, history of economics. Everything is based on this early history. And the seeds of this you can find right at the beginning of Islam itself. And that's where and how it should start. And that's why I always try to introduce this concept of knowledge tradition, so that we understand that, you know, the early history of Islam is not simply a history of religion. And that is why it becomes extremely important for us, you know, to study these points and try to understand how they gradually led to the emergence of why the Orientalist perspective that says that many of the sciences and philosophy itself emerged in Islamic civilization after the translations. This is definitely wrong. All of the sciences in Islamic civilization emerged out of the Quran and the Hadith. Everything is based on these. These are the foundations of everything. I will try to give you a concrete example. You know, suppose when you have this building and you want to build this building, are you going to start to build it from the roof? You cannot, it's impossible. Are you going to start building, okay, I have to put the roof on something. You say, okay, let me build the walls. If you do that, the building will collapse. So the starting is always the foundation. You start digging the ground, which is not seen, you see. Foundations are not observable. You have to search, you know, and especially scientific, scholarly foundations based on knowledge, they cannot be seen, they are not visible to the eye, to the physical eye. Most of them you can see with your mind, by akal, a conceptual analysis. But let me tell you one more thing, which is extremely important, and you don't see this quite in other civilizations. This is the most basic characteristic of Islamic civilization, that its strongest foundation is not even visible to the akal, to your mind. It is visible to the qalb, to your heart. That is why you have to, because the Quran itself is, as you know, emphasizing this point. You know, they have, as you know, the Quran says, they have the eye, but they don't see. But how can you do that? You know, if you have an eye, you have to see. You see, because it is not visible to the physical eye. And one more step even further, you know, even in Western civilization, many things you can see with the mind reasoning. But in Islamic civilization, the strongest foundation, the things that actually give spirit to everything, is not visible even to the mind. It is visible to the qalb, to the heart. And that is why it's extremely important that the Quran is paying attention. Be careful. Try to keep your qalb, heart, lively, alive, so that you will be able to see these realities. The spiritual reality cannot be seen with the physical eye, obviously. Not only that, but it is not visible even to the mind. It is visible only to the heart. And for this reason, if it is alive, the heart is alive, then thinking, mind, knowledge, they all become spiritual. Not only conceptual, of course, we are not denying reason. This is when the heart is developed, we are able to convert that spiritual understanding into rational knowledge also. But you see, there are procedures for that, how to do it, and that is why the significant part of and characteristic of Islamic knowledge tradition is this spiritual aspect. And this is what I really wanted to emphasize. That is why the concept of knowledge is important, but at the same time we should try to understand how this concept emerged and gradually led to the emergence of a tradition at the same time. Now, if this is the way we understand, here I mentioned Rosenthal. It's a bit far, I cannot read it. Very important, maybe you can read it. His emphasis that he says Islamic civilization is actually a civilization that is based on knowledge itself. And if we really push this a little bit further, we can say that Islamic civilization is really a scientific civilization. So that means in our civilization, if we are weak in knowledge, we will be backward in everything. We cannot progress, okay? But then we have to understand what is knowledge for us. You know, knowledge is only rational knowledge, only scientific knowledge. This spiritual aspect should not be, neglected. That we should pay attention to understand that also. But you know what Rosenthal does? It is very important, actually. It is based on a specific approach in studying civilizations. I noticed that Western sociologists and anthropologists, when they study society, culture, human history, they always look at everything from their own perspective. We say this is normal, but it is normal. On the other hand, how are you going to be objective towards other civilizations? If you if you develop your approach on self-centrism, you cannot understand other people, other cultures. It's impossible. What you will do is you try to stamp your own understanding and your culture on others. And that is why, many people today are against this globalization, because that is what happens. They tell us, for example, if you don't do science in the way we do it, it is not science. We don't call it science. And then I tell him, why, my friend? Is science something that is independent from us? We invent science. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have science. Because science means something we don't know, so we try to know. But there is nothing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not know. He knows everything, so He doesn't need science. We need science. If we need science, that means we are inventing science. Anything human beings do, it is not absolute. You know, therefore it is local and so on. So this self-centrism, unfortunately, led to Eurocentrism, okay, in this understanding. Rosenthal's approach, I am not sure, but I feel like he is not aware of it, you know. But because he paid so much attention on Islamic civilization, he came up with the correct conclusions. The approach he did is, after he studied Islamic civilization, he reached some general conclusions about us, which is correct. It is not wrong, because Islamic civilization is based on knowledge. This is true. But he tried to generalize this further to apply other civilizations also. If he applies exactly the same thing, then he will be Islamic centered. Again, self-centrism. So that means he needs one more further step to abstraction and generalization in order to apply it other civilizations also. He came up with an excellent conclusion. He said that every civilization is based on concepts of abstract nature. So he doesn't say based on knowledge, because this is for Islam only. There might be other, he doesn't say of course, but we have to see if there is any other civilization that is based on knowledge. But you see, he's coming from the West. He didn't carry it on to the Western civilization. So that means an abstract concept is actually stronger than anything that is more concrete. So usually, you know, when we look at the cities and civilizations, we see huge buildings, technologies, you know, weapons, science, and then we say, you see, this is what civilization is. Actually, again, there is something in the foundation which we cannot see. So that means we need an analysis, because they are all based on abstract things, abstract understandings. And when they become concrete, then this technology, buildings, and so on, they come out like that. So how this happened? Based on knowledge again. And that is why, you know, the most significant thing is definitely knowledge. I would like to offer a definition here. Now, in this definition, I would like to be general, you know, something that would be more or less acceptable to most of us. When I say us, I don't mean only Muslims, I mean everyone, every human being. I have this approach, very simple. Of course, we have, as you know from logic, if you have taken any logic courses, there is doctrine of definition, how we are supposed to define a concept. We already know that, you know, because a concept, as you know, is defined on the basis of an approximate genus and approximate difference. So that means we have to find these two things, okay, in order to define knowledge, which is extremely difficult. But I try to develop simple methods. I say, where is knowledge? Is it outside? Well, there is reality outside. This table itself is not knowledge. But when I say something about the table enters into my mind. So it becomes knowledge. So the proper place of knowledge is always in the mind. That means human mind, obviously. So that means the genus is very well known. The contents of mind, right? For the definition, the contents. But there are could be many things in our mind. Which one that we call knowledge in the true sense? As you know, human knowledge is always conceptual. So that means if whatever I perceive about the table is turned into a concept in my mind, it becomes knowledge. So in that case, the conceptual content of human mind is definitely knowledge. Very simple, I mean, a general definition. But then as we go on to come up with some characteristics, we say, what about a content in my mind which is false, not correct? Can we call this knowledge? It is very strange, but we call it knowledge because other people, they believe that this is my knowledge. But we say this is wrong, it is not correct. They say, no, it is correct. They try to defend it at the same time. So that means there is also false knowledge. But you see, we call it knowledge again. As if you remember the hadith, right? In the hadith, knowledge which is, not useful. So that means there is knowledge which is not useful. In the hadith, right, our Prophet ﷺ, he says, I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from not useful knowledge, right? Ilmun la yanfa, that we cannot benefit from. Even dangerous knowledge, right? There could be even dangerous knowledge. Of course, in order to warn us, the Quran has different steps to explain. Sometimes there is a kind of knowledge that the Quran calls it jahl, ignorance. And can you imagine that? You see, because the understanding, in our consciousness becomes very important. So all of these things, they become different classes of knowledge. And of course, all these things are turned into certain understandings in our tradition. We know what to do with it. We know how to deal with it. So that means all of this becomes, again, part of our knowledge tradition. Now, if I try to, I'm trying to see if there is, I can time myself, but I don't know, I have, in the program, I was given 45 minutes, if that is the correct way, so I can continue like this. First, let me tell you this one, very easy. A lot of times, of course, when we pay attention into the detail, the correct understanding is lost. So what we will do, we will try to bring those details together and then try to have a bird's eye view. Then we can see it as a whole. It becomes very easy to explain. So this is what I do in my approach, when I try to explain. If we examine, again, the Quran as a whole, we see that there are two brothers, sisters concepts introduced. One is ilm. Ilm, I have tried to show you how, in what senses it is used in the Quran. There are different senses, of course. But there is one sense which is important for us. That is the technical sense. So it becomes istilah, as you know, technical term. So this is important for us. The other ones are not important because we use it. Use it in everyday life. It is important, but in that sense only. But in the scientific sense, we need this technical term. In the technical sense, in the Quran also, that becomes, of course, the foundation at the same time. As you know, foundation is always at the beginning, not at the end. So at the beginning of Islam, any history in Islamic civilization, history of anything that you can think of, technology, and anything, the foundation is always the Quran. Sometimes they will say, how? I try to build an instrument. Am I supposed to look at the Quran? But this is not the foundation, you see. By foundation, we don't mean that, right? So when I say, I would like to have beautiful windows for this building, very beautiful, am I going to skip the foundation, just start from the windows? How are you going to situate it? So I said, no, wait, first we make the foundation. Somebody is not going to say, but the window is not in the foundation. Of course, but it is built on the foundation. So that is why when you want to invent something technical, obviously you're not going to look into the Quran, but your mind is already shaped. The foundation, it should be there. It is based on that, okay? So this is what I say always, that, the foundation of everything in Islamic civilization is the Quran. And that is the way it was always, until the 20th century. That means it's not today. We lost it. Our foundation is not there. And that is why sometimes when we have difficulty, we don't go back to the Quran, we go back to where we borrow the technology, go to the West. And that's why our mind, everything becomes corrupt. You see, this is the thing. And I usually give examples from the Islamic history, you know, the Islamic education always started with the Quran, always. Throughout the whole Muslim world, there is no exception for this. When we went to school, we start reading the Quran and try to understand what it says. And then we continue like that. Okay, good. Now I know how much time I have. Okay, so this Ibn Sina, I give you an extreme example. He tells in his autobiography, his life, he says, I started reading the Quran and I memorized it and I finished it when I was 10 years old. How come he didn't start from philosophy? You know, why did he start? How come he didn't start from mathematics or physics, but the Quran? And then he continued, he says, then I started studying fiqh, adab books, which is extremely important for us, of course. Without adab, it's not possible. He says he studied that. And then as he continued, gradually, later on, mathematics, physics, medicine, philosophy, you see? So that means all of those are based on the Quran. And of course, the Quranic understanding, tafsir, hadith, all of these things are already in his mind. That is why he was able to deal with Aristotelian philosophy. You know, of course, we are human beings, we can make mistakes. But it's okay, you know, if you make a mistake in science, it's not a big problem. But if you make a mistake in understanding of the Quran, it's a very big problem. So that is the way it continues. So this is the first, of course, the Quran also uses the term ilm in the language, in the technical, in the everyday language, namely to know, okay? But as I said, you know, the significant meaning that is used in the Quran is the technical sense, ilm. In this sense, ilm refers only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His knowledge. As you know, He's alim, right? We are alim, but He's alim. An alim may know things, may not know things, and may know something, but wrong. But this is not the case with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He's alim. So this is the technical sense that is used in the Quran. Okay, and then the second one, obviously, if there is knowledge that is revealed, we try to understand that knowledge in order to apply in everyday life. So that means the second one is knowledge that is derived from the Quran. Okay, so this is the second. Again, this is technical term. Okay, and then in the third one, as we continue, knowledge which is derived from the second level of knowledge, I call this illuminated knowledge, which we use in everyday life, okay? You know, what is the distinction between all, if we use our traditional technical terms, it's very easy to understand probably. The first one, revealed knowledge, that is to the prophets. The derived knowledge from those are from the scholars, right? The scholars, because they derive and they apply. And some of these scholars at a higher level, they are mujaddids also, okay? And then the third level, illuminated, is the intellectuals, intellectual Muslims. So it, as you can see, it is in grade levels, level by level, it goes like this. And then finally, when this is dispersed throughout the whole society, it, you know, it becomes, you know, everybody's knowledge. But what if knowledge that covers the truth, that is dark knowledge? It is jahl, as you know, in the Quran, this is the way it is defined. But there is one term that we use today concerning knowledge, scientific knowledge. Where is it? In the Quran, the term ilm is never ever used to refer to science. It is not. Not even technical sense or in any other sense. It is not used. This is very strange. And that's what I say, you know. When our Prophet ﷺ, he came, for instance, he didn't say, okay, I'm going to establish a high civilization in which there will be sciences. Gradually this will turn into science and Muslims become, you know, established in everything, become very strong. He never said this, right? But you see, although he didn't say it, and that was not his purpose, what happened? They became the highest in civilization, in culture, in sciences, in technologies, for many, many centuries, in fact. For at least 700 years, they were very strong in all of these things, okay? So that means, you know, every time we say science, technology, and science, technology, doesn't mean that science and technology will develop. Because we have to try to see the foundation, establish the foundation very well, you know, on strong terms. Then we can understand it. Actually, there is one term that comes very close in the Quran to the word that we use today referring to science. The term that comes very close to science in the Quran is fiqh, actually. Why? Because ilm refers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His knowledge, but fiqh refers to our knowledge. But our knowledge is scientific. So, I mean, if it is technical, namely, you know, that can be applied to solve issues and so on in the society. And in that sense, fiqhuddin, right? As you know, in the Quran, this is encouraged. This is what you should, and then of course in many of the hadith, this is emphasized. So that means knowledge comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we try to understand. As you know, it is, you know, very apt. The term fiqh in Arabic also means to understand. But it is a deeper understanding, right? It's not just regular, because we understand in order to apply, in order to develop, in order to solve many issues and so on. So these terms gradually led to the understanding of knowledge in Islamic civilization, how it is applied. But of course, as you know, when we say tradition, tradition also refers to the behavior, the things that we do in everyday life, right? So they are all together. So that means, you know, there is knowledge, understanding, teaching, and then the student that follows that teaching, you know, and the institutions. All of these things gradually developed in Islamic civilization. I always say this, that, you know, the foundation of Islamic education is established by the Prophet ﷺ. This is no doubt at all. And that tradition actually followed until the 20th century. So that means Muslims today, after 1900, we left that tradition. Where did we go? We went to the Western tradition. Now, in all our Muslim countries, we follow the Western tradition. But it was not because the educational system, as it was established in Medina at the Sufa, right? And our Prophet was the teacher, and he says, I am sent as a teacher. Very well-known hadith, right? Again, I am sent as a teacher. So that means he was teacher, he had students. Usually when I describe this, let me see what you think about this, you know. My description of the Sufa is something like this. You know, those people who stay at the Sufa, they are PhD students. When you compare today's, you see, then you understand what that means. Our Prophet ﷺ, he was giving PhD. In what? In Quran studies. Because that is because it's a foundation. You cannot start from the roof. You have to start from the foundation. And when those people, they finished their PhD, he sent them to another area. Okay, go and start teaching there. And those Sahabis, right? They went and they established the Sufa in other areas throughout the whole world. And can you imagine that? And when, Professor Hamid, he was teaching us and showing the history of Gontor, this came to my mind that, at the beginning, they started something like this, like imitating the Sufa, and that is why it is very successful. If you continue in this way, you will be successful because you start from the foundation. You don't start from the roof or from the walls or from the windows. All these things, therefore, it's an effort that it takes time. So this, I try to give here, I'm not following I'm just showing it to you, my slides, but over there I have the evidence for this. I try, when I say something, so I give the evidence from the hadith and also from other scientific works that they do, on this. So as a result, please you remind me how much time I have every time. So still I have time, I believe. This tradition is based on also some concepts. All these concepts gradually developed, of course. When there is foundation, this foundation disperses its characteristics to the whole building. For instance, simple, obviously we are dealing with science and knowledge, which is conceptual, it is not concrete. But I give you examples from the concrete, little bit, it makes it easy for us to understand. But they don't match each other completely in every sense. Just the example I would like to give you is this. The foundation of this building immediately gave its characteristic to the whole building. For instance, it is rectangular, and you cannot make a circular building anymore because the foundation is not circular. So as a result, it will give its characteristic to the whole building. And whatever, all these things are built, and so on, it's all coming from the foundation. And that is its characteristic. So the foundation of Islamic tradition is revelation. That means most of our early technical terms are from revelation. I mean, even if you take, for instance, if you have time, one day you can check. But I will give you, again, I usually like to give extreme examples because if you give close example, it's easy, everyone can see it. The extreme example is just take Khwarizmi's Al-Jabr wal-Muqabala, if you have time. And this is when algebra developed, right? They didn't have algebra before. He developed, just read, you will see that most of the technical terms he is using there are in the Quran, revealed. Can you imagine a science which is revealed? Of course, it is not revealed, but it is based on revealed concepts. In that sense, I am saying it is revealed, right? So that means the technical terms are also revealed in early Islamic civilization, in also sciences, in knowledge and so on, knowledge tradition. It's all revelation. But obviously, we are not robots. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't want us to be robots. He doesn't. Because He says, study, try to increase knowledge. So that means we contribute also. As a result, we also invented new technical terms. But imagine this. Most of the technical terms in your mind are revealed, and you want to invent something, you will have to utilize the revealed ones, obviously, right? You are not taking from any other source. So as a result, any technical terms Muslim scientists invented based on those revealed technical terms. So we can say, in a sense, directly revealed, derivatively revealed, right? So that is why it was very strong, and it was based on strong foundations. And that is why when Ibn Sina was studying Aristotelian philosophy, he discovered that his theology is wrong. He threw it out. He said, this is not good for us. We need something different. Why? Because in Aristotelian theology, there was no creation. That is why. So as a result, they tried to invent something else. But of course, in that something else, sometimes they made mistakes also. As I said, we are allowed to make mistakes in sciences. We are not allowed to make mistakes in revealed issues. This is important. So that means we need a methodology for that, inshallah. That is why this mana harfi, is extremely important, the approach, which I translate as literal. Because harf, as you know, means letter, not exactly matching the English one again, but at least comes close to it. I try to say literal meaning or literal perspective again. So it is based on that. So this knowledge tradition, again, developed in this way, based on the revealed technical terms. And then we derived and developed our own technical terms, gradually led to Islamic knowledge tradition. Islamic knowledge tradition. This knowledge tradition, number one, the most important thing, includes our understanding of knowledge in the Islamic sense, of course. Okay? So based on revelation, what we understand from knowledge, the doctrinal understanding of knowledge itself. And number two, what do I do with it? My behavior. Of course, as a teacher, how should I act? How should I teach? What is my model? My model is the model of the first teacher, our Prophet ﷺ. How did he teach? How was he explain? What kind of methodology he used in this teaching, right? Muslims always followed that. As you know, he is uswa hasana for us, right? Our role model. This is the English term. It's very, secular. When you say uswa hasana, it's very spiritual, right? You can see the approach. Hasana, good example. Not role model. Role, you are acting. You see, but we are not acting. We are living, right? So this, and then our students at the same time. So our students, they become like the Sufwa students, right? And they try to see what is the relationship and so on. And what connects all of this is knowledge. Is knowledge and that understanding. So this constitutes actually Islamic understanding of knowledge and our knowledge tradition. There is sociological explanation also. The definition of tradition itself, I try to define it and then come up with this definition of Islamic knowledge tradition, which is the totality of customs, mores, attitudes, and rituals, beliefs, which arose through a regular performance of certain behaviors of members of a group of, or rather a community of scholars, individuals. These are scholars, ulama in other words, actively involved in learning activities in Muslim societies. You know, when you pay attention, this is one characteristic of Islamic civilization. I would like to say, if there are anthropologists amongst us, I will use a term problematic for the West. For us, it's not really very much problematic. I usually say Islamic civilization is homogeneous. Homogeneous means knowledge tradition in Turkey is the same as knowledge tradition here. And that is why when I came here, I don't feel confused. Why is this teacher acting like that? Why, they teach, why are you teaching fiqh? I don't say that, right? Because this homogeneity. And this gives unity. That is why the idea of tawhid is extremely strong in Islamic civilization. Our cultures are different. Islam allows that. Why? Because your color, your language, your culture, they are all ayat. Yeah, right? They are the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran says that. I am not saying, we cannot say something like this. And the Quran is saying that. So therefore the Quran, Islamic understanding, the tawhid allows cultural difference, but not conceptual difference. It unites us. Our understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tawhid is the same. That is why, when we go to a masjid, I don't say, let me see who's going to be imam. We know, I say imam is there. I just go say Allahu Akbar, and then I don't say, let me see, what is he reading? I'm reading something different. No, we are all reading the Fatiha. So, and then we read the surah from the Quran. It is the same. Unity is here. Unity is not in the architecture of the mosque. In the architecture, you can do it yourself. And this gives beauty also. That is the beauty of, but unfortunately, when the Westerners, they come, what they see as religion is the culture. And that is why they say Turkish Islam, Indonesian Islam, this Islam, that Islam. This is something very wrong. Islam is one. Muslim cultures are different. And Islam allows that. It is the beauty. And if, as you know, the Quran says, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He wanted, He would make us all one nation. But this is not good. Why? Because, different creation means richness in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. If He made us all one, we say, oh, Allah knows only one thing. You see? But this is not the case. Everything, even all our Indonesian brothers, sisters are not the same also. He creates them all different. Because difference means richness in creation. Richness in His knowledge. Infinite knowledge, referring to that. So that is why this understanding of the tradition itself is extremely important. And then I try to give these characteristics, probably you can see. The starting proposition, maybe we would say, is that true knowledge is but with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Innamal ilmu indallah. We always say that ilm, knowledge, comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We struggle towards it, and He gives it to us as a blessing bestowed on us. If that is the case, that means He gives, but at different levels. As a result, there is maratib in ilm. This is again our understanding in our tradition. So this I try to explain a little bit, referring to the Quranic levels, the way the Quran is using. Obviously, the highest knowledge is revelation. So that means, when higher, that means everyone should pay respect and try to follow that one. And then the second one is the derivative. The one that is, I usually translate this as tabligh, the tabligh knowledge. Because tabligh is based on the Quran. It is derived from the Quran, and mainly the mujaddids, the higher level of scholars. So that means there is maratib in scholarship also. There are some scholars, they are higher than others. In everything it is like this, even in physics. There are some physicists, they are very high level, because his knowledge, his experience, and so on, the theories that he develops, and so on and so forth. So this maratib leads again to all of these things. And then in the maratib, one level below pays attention to all the higher levels. That means they have to try to understand and see how they can emulate and apply in their life, and so on. So all of these things again brought conceptual characteristics for Islamic scientific and knowledge tradition that I wanted to share with you today. This is my end of my presentation. Thank you very much again to all of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Ladies and gentlemen, our following agenda is the presentation of tokens of appreciation and group photo session. The tokens of appreciation will give from Professor Dr. Hamid Fahmi Jarkasi, the Executive President from Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, Professor Said Yushe. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude our agenda today, we will now have a closing prayer led by the President of University of Darussalam Gontor. The time is your honorable.
Al-Fatihah. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad an kulli sahabat Rasulillah Ismail walhamdulillah bil alamin hamdan naimin hamdan syakirin hamdan yuafi daman yukafi majidahu ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhil karim wa ati sultanik. Allahumma akbir lana dunubana wa kafir lana sayyatina wa tawaffana ma abrar. Allahumma akbir lana wali walidayna warhamna kama rabbayana shighar. Allahumma akbir lana wali ikhwanina alladziina sabaquna bil iman wa la taj'al fi qulubina ghillan lil ladziina amanu innaka rahim. Allahumma aftah himataka wansurna min khazaini rahmatika bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma sallimna min afati dunya wa min adabil akhirah fitnati ma baliyati ma fatihati ma innaka la qadir. Allahumma adfa'na al bala wal ghala wal fasha wal fitan wal mikan madara mamadan min baladina dah khassa wa min buldan muslimina amma. Allahumma la tada' fi maqamina hadha dhanban ila kabarta wa la dainan ila qadatu wa la mariton ila shwata wa la hamman ila farajta wa la jahilan ila alamta wa la faqiran ila aqnahta wa la azaban ila zawajta wa la hajatan min hawaijunna ila qadatu bastarja rabbul alamin. Allahumma syrib ana syaratul limin wa qaral makrin wa jami'i masaib dunya wa din. Allahumma nal haqqa wa sunatibah wa nal batila batila wa sunatinabah. Allahumma afrid lana sabra wa sabbit aqdamana wa zakamil kafirin wa sunaka min qalimin. Allahumma sahil umrana wa umura ma'dina wa umura jami'atina fit tarbiyah wa ta'lim wa bil idara wa tangdim wa fil bina'i wa ta'mir wa umura usratina wa umuru dirasati alatina innaka la qadir. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have additional presentation of token of appreciation from Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture to University of Darussalam Gontor.
Pakai itu, Mas.
Our next agenda is group photo session. We request the distinguished member of our audience today to take a photo with us together.